Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. My name is Leonard Brackett. I'm one of your co-hosts for this particular platform. Uh, Tonight is Friday, and usually on Friday we do a presentation in regards to the laws of Belize, Constitution of Belize, as well as other legal matters that relates to our country of Belize. We always start our program with a short prayer, followed by a scripture reading, and then we go into the substance of our program. So for tonight, I'll bow my head and offer a word of prayer. Divine loving Father, once again we come before thy presence, asking that thou would have mercy upon us, that thou would continue to guide and bless and protect and strengthen us, that thou would continue to give us wisdom, knowledge and understanding, that we may impart information that is credible and valuable and useful to our people of Belize, both at home and abroad. We pray that thou mayest continue to bless our family members, our friends, and other extended family members, wherever they are. Please bless Belize, its people and its leadership as well. Please bless this country of the United States, its people and its leadership. And we pray that thou mayest continue to bless all those people who are in danger, some of whom are losing their lives or limbs, those who are in fire disaster areas, loving Father, such as in Los Angeles and other places all over the world, people who are in war zones, who sometimes are being killed gratuitously for no justifiable reason. We pray also, loving Father, that thou would bless the rest of humanity. Thou knowest their supplications, thou knowest their trials and tribulations. We pray that thou mayest hearken unto our needs. Continue to be with us, we pray for Christ's sake, we pray his mercies, amen. Thank you very much for bearing patience with us as we move along with our program. As I said, on Friday night, I usually do a Friday night programs, and while we constantly beat on the issue of motivating our people to learn and understand about the Constitution of Belize, is because we have this Damocles sword hanging over our head as regards to whether or not we will be able to keep our existing constitution, or it will be eviscerated as is planned by those to whom we have entrusted our governance power. Of course, we entrusted them with that power, and then subsequently they decided what they wanted to do. They didn't ask us or put out some information, probably as part of their manifesto, to say this would have been their manifesto objective, to eviscerate the constitution of the country and get rid of the head of state, commit sedition, take over the country by whatever means necessary, and therefore have themselves as head of state. That being said, we are where we are, and only the people can save the people in circumstances like these when you have major constitutional crises brewing. It's the people that needs to stand up and demand accountability of those who would bastardize our constitution and who would do us ill without us being able to exercise our rights to figure out whether or not we want them to tamper with our constitution to the degree that they are attempting to. They have already been empowered to make changes to the constitution, but they want to make wholesale changes, and in particular they want to make changes that the constitution does not allow them to make. So then they want to get rid of the whole thing, that being the case. Of course, they did not tell us that as part of their manifesto. They did not tell us that when they started this process. They started on the conniving and tricky process where they were saying, oh, they just want to ask the people if the people think that they have any need to make any changes, when in fact they were engineering this process to try and have the people make a decision on some changes that they wanted to have in the Constitution. And the Prime Minister himself had gone on to say that there are some parts of the Constitution that's blocking him off from dealing with certain circumstances or certain situations and certain people. That is to say, he quickly realized after we kept on flagging him for it that the SOEs, the bogus, unconstitutional state of emergencies that they were declaring, were not adequate, properly vested, and done under the correct criteria. And we kept beating on that to the point where now they are now acknowledging that to be the reality, but still they are aggrieved because the people from Southside that they wanted to deal with, they cannot just go wholesale, grab them up like what the Prime Minister's friend, Mr. Bukele in El Salvador, does with his population over there, because he's head of state over there. He has a constitution that is completely different from the one that we have. He has a system of governance that is different than the one that we have. But these jackals wants to be able to exercise supreme power with no accountability. I'll get there in a little while. Let me just read this. Just a second, please. Just want to find this particular part that I was looking. I need to read here. Okay. I'm going to read from the book of Judges. And I'm going to read chapter 21, starting at verse 1. Now, the men of Israel had seen in I'm not able to pronounce the word correctly. Misper, I think that's what it is. Saying, there shall not any of us give the daughter unto Benjamin to wife. And the people came to the house of God and abode there. That is to say, they came there and started to hang out there. They abode there until even before God. And even before God has lifted us up, there are various, and they wept sorely. That will be my reading for tonight. I will move on to the rest of the program. Thank you for bearing with me as I try to go through that particular section. I'm back to the preliminary commentary before I go into the other part of the presentation. And I was just saying that our current government seems bent on eviscerating the Constitution. And the Constitution is a living document, self-preserving, by the way, which is to say, if they want to create a new Constitution, there are certain sections of the Constitution that they just can't dispense with. They will have to take those parts of the Constitution, move them over into their new package that they want to create, and make a new Constitution around those parts. And those parts are what you call the structure of the Constitution. They cannot just arbitrarily and capriciously eviscerate any of those portions. For example, they cannot say, well, Congress will get together, or the House of Representatives and the Senate will get together and pass a law, unconstitutional at that, to say they will get rid of the judiciary, and the judiciary, whatever is left of it, will have no teeth or no power or authority over deciding whether any of the laws that the House is making and the Senate assent to is constitutional or not. Because once they declare that, once they make that law in the House, for all intents and purposes, they would constitute themselves as being a super all-powerful legislator. That is to say, all powers of lawmaking and constitutional decision-making rest with authority vested in the lawmakers. It will not be then like how it is today. That is, the lawmakers can make just about any law that they want, but if it's not within the constitutional constraints, they can be ruled as being null and void. They want to get rid of that peculiarity of our Constitution. They don't want to be told that the laws that they are making are unconstitutional and that they are acting as scofflaws and that they cannot take away certain fundamental rights or basic rights or human rights or inalienable rights. They want to be able to do just about what they want and not be obstructed. The problem is that they're not taking away their own rights, but they're not making the laws that they promised that they was going to make so that they can be checkmate in terms of being accountable and stop ripping off the country's assets and stop stealing the country's assets or giving it to each other. No, they don't want to deal with that. That's not their problem. They want to exercise the powers that we invest in them against us. And that's the part that is the travesty. Nevertheless, for right now, I'll cease and desist on that particular commentary as to the government of the day, because I've been doing that quite a bit, and I expect to be doing quite a bit more. I have a particular issue that galls me, frustrates me, because while the Constitution says that the courts must have, especially at the Supreme Court level or at the highest courts possible in our system, the courts must have the last say and must have original authority over our laws and over legal matters. That is why we have a judiciary as part of our three branches of government. Of course, I keep on repeating when people mention about the three branches of government, the need to remember that there's a fourth branch, because those three branches of government have to work on behalf of the fourth. That's the purpose of their existence. They have no other purpose for existence other than to work on behalf of the fourth branch of our government. That is to say, the plebiscite, the people of the country. And which is why some parts of our Constitution leave it in the hands of the people and says that without their consent, the government cannot do certain things. Because those powers rest in the populace, not in the executive, not in the legislature, not in the judiciary. There are some instances where none of those three parts of the government can tamper with rights and powers that are vested in the fourth branch of our government. That is to say, the people. The people have paramount powers, and that is the reason why in the preamble of the Constitution it says, we, the people of Belize, decide that certain things should happen a certain way and certain other things should happen a certain other way. And it commands that the Constitution must put those things that they specialize in those statements into the Constitution and make it be enshrined in the Constitution itself. So your inalienable rights are enshrined in the Constitution under Part 2, Section 3 through 19. And for good measure of the court system having original jurisdiction to any such matters that comes under those particular sections of the Constitution, it gives us Section 20 for judicial review. So there's nothing that the government does that should not have the possibility of having it being reviewed under judicial review status. That's the way our Constitution is structured. They don't want to teach us those things in elementary, at a basic level. They don't want to teach it in junior high or high school, much less college. So most of our people, if they want to become lawyers or deal with legal issues, they got to go and study abroad. They got to go to Jamaica. They got to go to, States. They got to go to England. They got to go to, all over the world. They get scholarships, or some of them pay for their own studies. But it is not the habit of our government in Belize to try and encourage our people to learn and know about the Constitution and or any basic legal matters. Other than when they want to create a SOE, they go ahead and write a statutory instrument, an SI, and sanction on their own an SOE, even without sometimes the acquiescence of the Governor General, which is what the Constitution requires. That for an SOE to be properly assented to, properly put into effect constitutionally, it should have the ascension of the Governor General. But for all intents and purposes, some of the most outrageous breaking of the Constitution by assenting to some crazy stuff that the government wants to do in cabinet. They then turn around and have their cabinet secretary act in the absence of the original Governor General and sign matters on behalf of the Governor General in her absence. And I have yet to see where, in any of these cases, the Governor General rebukes any of these false ascensions and or recall under the powers vested in her as the original Governor General. Just a second, I see one of our other panelists. I don't know, it looks like Gregory in the background. If it's Gregory, then he can bring himself on, but if it's Mr. Wade, then I'll have to help him onto the platform. Let me check and see what's going on here. Greg? Oh, okay. I just wanted to double check and see who it was, no? If it was you or Mr. Wade trying to...
I can barely hear you, sir. Good night.
Okay. If you are in the background wanting to spend some time doing something else, then I won't disturb you. Then I can continue on for right now, no? But if you're ready to come
I
on...
can...
I'm sorry? Oh. Uh-oh. I'm sorry about that. I had my finger on the keyboard and while I was talking, I didn't hear what you said.
I can barely hear you, and I have my volume up high.
Your volume is up high?
All the way.
Okay. Well, I've been running the program without my earpiece on too. Anyhow, were you ready to come on now? That was.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Could you go ahead then and introduce yourself, sir? I yield to you.
Good night to the Belizean people at home and abroad. We thank you for tuning in to this, our 244th edition of Belizean Affair. Sitting with me virtually as the chairman tonight is Mr. Leonard Brackett. We thank you again for tuning in, and I go back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Greg, for your introduction and for being available tonight. Uh, you, I was dealing with a couple of matters just now, and I did not take the liberty of slowing down to launch the other part of the program. So you have a short commentary for about a minute or a minute and a half, so I could just get back on the
No, sir.
discussion.
Go
And
ahead, Mr. Chairman.
okay, well then I'll just
I
have
will
to.
follow your lead.
Yes, but I needed a couple of minutes, at least a minute or so, for me to launch the other part of the program, and I would have done it anyhow by just leaving the notifying the public that I was about to do that, and then I would have to kill about a minute of your time, And that's why I was asking if you wanted to say something else in the meantime. You could have gone ahead and do so, but let me go ahead and do what I need to do here anyhow.
What I will do like to say, Mr. Chairman, and to the public, it is my understanding that the general election will be held in March. So I want you, the people at home and abroad, to take heed of what I'm saying. And I also want to say, since we are not hearing too much about this coming general election, we need to pay heed because the present government wants to do constitutional reform as to not allow the government to input anything during this general election that has to do with constitution reform, because I have seen an insight by Mr. Musa Karim where he had mentioned that the general election was coming and he had hoped that they will input with what has to do the marijuana bill. So let's see how far the present government has intention to input in the general election. I go back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, sir. Um, I'm just trying to launch this other part of the stuff here in the meantime. Give me a second. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what the thought that you was bringing forward just now, Greg?
I was specifying to the people at home and abroad about the upcoming general election. As I said, everything is pointing to sometime in March. And I was also stipulating that I want the people to bear in mind that constitution reform is presently in the hands of our government. And I was saying I hope that the government does not input as a part of this election anything to do with constitution reform or anything that has to do with the marijuana bill.
Go ahead. Go ahead, sir. Uh, Go ahead,
I
Greg.
thought you was ready, sir.
No, no. I'm going to be ready in a few. Just give me a second here.
Okay, with that said, let me go to a
Two five
tape
four.
in the meantime to hear
Go right
what the
ahead, sir.
Prime Minister had to say
Go right ahead, Greg.
and open their eyes this past
Be
Monday.
seen if we would have legalized marijuana, it takes it away from the criminal elements. because now you are paying tax, and then but right now in many instances supposedly the talk is that they're fighting over turf.
All of that would have fallen within, in my opinion,
Be seen if we would have legalized marijuana, it takes away from the criminal elements because now you are paying tax, and then but right now in many instances supposedly
Again, I'm having issues, sir, with the tips. Every now
Is
and
it?
then it seems to be a problem.
You could just
Let
make a
me
general
try it
comment
again.
on what the tape was implying, no?
be seen if we would have legalized marijuana, it takes away from the criminal elements because now you are paying tax, and then but right now in many instances supposedly the talk is that they're fighting over turf.
all of that would have fallen with.
I was looking at the news today and I was listening to the saga from the UDP, and I was quite amazed of what I was hearing because I had personally said it that I do not believe that the High Court has any business getting involved with a private entity affair.
Uh,
I also
mhm.
stipulated that I don't think the leader of the UDP, so-called leader, I would say, because I believe in a private entity function. Until that is proven wrong, it will remain my belief. And I do believe that his intention is one of protecting his own self and not liberally towards the Belizean people.
that that was the subject that I was gonna lead into after making the comments that I made originally. I had made a few comments before, and I said that I was gonna change the subject. And since you brought that point up again, I'm just gonna go ahead and way into that as the continuity. But I was trying to find the Constitution section 13 here. Just a second. I was trying to get section 13 on my screen so I can read it. I'm almost there. Okay. Okay. So I
In
got.
the meantime, you're doing that,
Uh,
let me go see if this tape will work.
yes, sir. Go right ahead, sir.
Stories 2 weeks ago, the headline was about the possibility of UDP mediation. Well, tonight, we can confirm that, as might have been expected, that is now off the table. In
Okay. Uh, let me see section 13. Just a minute, Greg. I just want to make sure I get this stuff correct so I can read it. That's 17. Okay, I want to go to 13. But okay, I got 13. Okay, so okay, so I'm at section 13 now, and I want to go ahead and read it just before I make the commentary about what I was talking about. No, uh, section 13 of the Constitution of Belize reads as follows, and it speaks about the protection of freedom of assembly and association. Uh, Section 13.1 says, except with his own consent. When it says his, it means his or her. It means both male and female, and it means anyone basically, except with his own consent. A person shall not be hindered in the enjoyment of his freedom of assembly and association. That is to say, his rights to assemble freely and associate with other uh, persons, and in particular, to form or belong to a trade union or other associations for the protection of his interests, or to form or belong to a political party or other political association. So it says, as clear as can be understood in Section 13 of our Constitution, that only with the acquiescence of an individual should that person's right to associate with anyone else or to create an organization, association, a political party, or deal with political matters, which is why each of the major mass parties in our country have a constitution which governs their activities. And the structure of those mass parties, the highest power and authority of those mass parties, as per their constitution, is their biannual delegate, who delegate authority then to subordinate officers. And none of those subordinate officers or those subordinate committees can tell that particular group of people what they should do or not do, or mandate that they do or don't do, because they're subordinate officers or subordinate organizations. They only act on behalf of this committee, the annual conference delegate, and the court is forbidden, and it's a bar for the court to delve into any special issues that pertains to the constitution of any of those mass parties or any other party, for that matter of fact, because the constitution is speaking to individuals as well as structural organizations. The government, any of its three branches, is forbidden to tamper into the political affairs or political parties or associations who have their own bylaws, or any private entity or private company, which is why they lost that case with the ASR BSI when the government tried to use the supermajority that they had and empower the minister to create an SI to go ahead and try to get into those people's business on behalf of the Cañeros. The judge, I don't remember her name. I don't want to mess up the person's name, so I'm not. I can't call her name adequately or properly, so I'll leave it at that. Specifically, made use of those constitutional criteria and requirements. So, when this particular judge in this case, where Mr. Shine Barrow and his entourage put together a case asking a judge to look into some matters, there were two different main issues. One, the way the UDP headquarters was dispossessed of them, they were dispossessed of the UDP headquarters, and secondly, as to who legitimately is the authority of the party, like the party leader. Because Mr. Shine used to be in two different positions. One, he used to be the party leader, and two, he used to be the leader of the opposition in the House. Those are two different positions. It could be two different people, or it could be one and the same person. This particular judge yielded to the emergency request by Mr. Barrow and his entourage, who conflated and lied to the judge in their submission to the judge in stipulating that as of that point in time when he was making that request of the judge, he was still in possession of the authority vested in the party leader of the party, which was incorrect. And that was actually an attempt of bullying as well as an attempt of acting rogue, disrespecting the authority of the party. And he and Mr. Perfit and some others were trying to stop the party from having a biannual conference delegates to discipline Mr. Barrow. And that's why Mr. Perfit refused to attend the party, the conference. And that's why he was trying to stop it. That's why they were talking and saying all kind of mischievous stuff, saying that even the delegates were not duly appointed and they were not the correct delegates and a whole lot of craziness that they had to swallow afterwards. They went and they lied to the judge and tell the judge that they needed to have possession of the building because they need to continue the party affairs, when he was not the party leader. He had been sacked as of the 20th of October. But the judge had known that, which was the responsibility of the judge to know that, he then should not have ruled the way he ended up ruling. Because what he did is contravene the Constitution. First of all, he entered, he could have responded by saying, okay, well, he don't know who the leader of the party is. He has to wait until the full case is heard, and until the case is heard, everything is going to stand still. But no, he waited on behalf of whom he considered to be the leader of the opposition, who is not the same as the leader of the party. And the leader of the opposition have no authority over the leader of the party. The leader of the opposition is subordinate to the leader of the party in terms of the affairs of the party. The poor judge, unfortunately, may not even recognize those realities, and probably will not recognize that until the full case is heard later on this year. At least that's the way it's been planned. In the meantime, Mr. Barrow is going around saying that because the judge gave them access to the building, that means that the judge was intimating that for all intents and purposes there is no need to hear the final case or the substantive case, because the judge has already decided that he should be the leader of the party and he should continue dealing with the matters of the party as the leader of the party, not as the leader of the opposition in the House. And now he's going around trying to be mischievous again in trying to stipulate that Ms. Panton is claiming to be the leader of the party when the judge, according to him and his entourage and his lawyers, are saying that that decision was already made by the judge. How the hell the judge going to arrive at making such a decision without having heard the substantive case? So the judge went ahead and answered affirmatively the request by Mr. Barrow, and he took that and compared it. And he has his new lawyer now coming to tell us in Belizean that Ms. Panton needs to be sanctioned by the judge because she is disobeying the judge's order. The judge didn't make no order to tell Ms. Panton that she is not the leader, because the judge is not in any position to be able to make any such decision. Anyhow, I would like to yield to you for a few minutes, Greg. I don't want to monopolize the show for right now. No?
In the matter of what you are saying that is happening in the UDP, first of all, Ms. Panton is being put in an irrebuttable presumption that she is not the party leader, because none of the above names, like Hugo Pipe, had took part in the convention. But then, regardless if they took part in the convention, what about the rebuttable presumption? The rebuttable presumption is the party is run by delegates and they have a constitution that can recall any member for no confidence. And this is what they did. They did a recall on Mr. Barrow and choose not to want to have him as their leader. And because this was done, as I have said before, it is my belief that the court should not have get involved. The court should have rescinded and let them finish it out within the party. Because I can safely say this. If Mr. Barrow is so believing that he is the leader of the opposition and what Ms. Pantandi do because he expelled him was wrong, why don't he go to a convention and find out? And you know the answer to that, people at home and abroad, he will lose. I can safely say that he will lose. And I'm saying this because they were supposed to go in mediation and he walked away from the mediation, not willing to go to a convention.
He's a petulant kid. He's a neophyte. He doesn't know anything about politics. And all he wants to do is to act like a thug and bully the process and force the process to be with him at the head of the party. And if the people don't want to follow him, how the hell can he claim to be the head of a party that doesn't have any people that wants to follow him? Well, I shouldn't say any. That doesn't have the majority of the people that wants to follow him. And that is the reason why he did not attend the convention. Because the majority of the people would have voted him out just as they did. There was no way for him to have prevented that from happening. So he stayed away, and now he's trying to create mischief behind the scene to hamstrung the party from being able to try the best they could have in terms of dealing with the upcoming election. Because for all intents and purposes, there are people who are already elected to the House under the UDP banner. This jackass is trying to get them to leave the party, or him keep trying to say, well, he have the power or some authority, some miraculous powers, I don't know where the hell he's going to get them from, to kick anybody out of the party. He didn't make that party.
Mr. Chairman,
party. Go ahead,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, the question then becomes, what power does the delegate have? And if he believes he is the leader of the opposition and the leader of the House, then go to a convention and see how much delegates he have with him.
He refused to attend
Any
the convention.
one of them can go.
Because he knew he didn't have the numbers. He knew who were in his favor and who was against him. And he knew that he could not go to a convention and win, which is why they came up with that bogus business talking about nobody should challenge him until after the next general election, which is a contravention of the Constitution. That on the face of it was a thuggish move.
I believe that all this has to do with diplomatic immunity. Let's get it straight out there. Let's not hide the fact.
I call it burnishing his credentials for the same purpose as diplomatic immunity, so he can get back to the United States of America, where all his assets are tied up. Haul his ass and go take care of his business and leave the affairs of our country and stop meddling around with it and messing it up. Because there's no way he will ever become the Prime Minister of Belize. From the time he made that first jump at the position of the leader of the opposition and try to get his auntie and Mr. Pat to vote for him to kick out Mr. Farber. He's been trying to kick out people out of the party ever since. He was telling Mr. Farber that if Mr. Farber resigned as leader of the party, then he would have resigned as leader of the opposition. You know, that's how much of a neophyte the guy is. He feel like he could have just bamboozled anybody with that kind of stupid statement. And people would have fell for it, and then he would have grabbed the position as leader of the party as well. He covets this position. He covets these means of being able to burnish his credentials.
Mr. Chairman, let's see if the tape will play.
Go ahead,
Stories 2 weeks ago, the headline was about the possibility of UDP mediation. Well, tonight, we can confirm that, as might have been expected, that is now off the table. In his most recent filing to the High Court earlier this week, Shine Barrow's attorney, Christopher Malcolm, asked the court to allow the parties to, quote, be permitted to dispense with mediation. And while some legal experts we have spoken to say that this may pave the way to a more expeditious solution, Panton says, quote, this move to undermine the mediation process underscores Shine Barrow's intention to disregard the voice of the party's delegates and avoid any process that can jeopardize his situation, end quote. Panton says her side has submitted the names of 2 proposed mediators to the court and has expressed her willingness to engage in a mediated settlement, even if it involves holding another convention to determine the party's leadership, end quote. She concludes by saying, quote, this dictatorship-like approach will be met with resistance. Meanwhile, in his most recent filing, Barrow's attorney again asked the court to have contempt charges laid against Panton. And we take a break now, but when we come back,
There we go, Mr. Chairman. The gentleman do not even want to go to mediation. He abandoned the process.
He has
So
no foot to
that
stand
should
on.
speak for itself.
He has no legs to stand on in regards to achieving what he's trying to achieve. That boat has already sailed, and it's not coming back to the same harbor. So he cannot get back on that same boat. He doesn't even recognize that or understand that. So he's flailing around, killing a lot of time, bamboozling people, trying to bully Miss Panton and the rest of the people into having them follow him. That will not happen again. He had his turn, and he screwed up royally, if I must say it in that kind of way. It's not coming back. At least not while I'm alive. I want to read this thing. This is a little essay that was written on November 11th of 2024. And it says, the following commentary was made by Leonard Brackett. And I titled it, Error in Judgment, as regards to the very same thing I was commenting on earlier. And I'm going to read a little essay that I had written about that particular subject. It starts like this. The judge erred. That is, the judge that made that ruling that the property should be returned to the control of Mr. Shine Barrow as the leader of the opposition. Mind you, I explained to you before, that is not the same as to say the leader of the party. Am I clear on that? The judge made a ruling saying that the way the headquarters was taken over by Ms. Panton's group as the leader of the party was not done according to how the judge would have liked for it to have happened. Under judicial review, for Ms. Panton them to have gone to the court and asked the court to get Mr. Shine out of the property and have the court give an order for Mr. Shine to cease and desist and or to give up the keys to the place and go through the legal process. In other words, all of that could have happened, and Mr. Shine would have sued and said, okay, he wants to have a case heard, and then he would have been the one in the position to now say he wants the whole case being heard so that his position could be vindicated as compared to what he had the judge make a ruling on the issue of the property itself. Because they claim in their request to the judge that he, as the party leader, well, he claimed that he, as the leader of the opposition, which according to the judge he then would have been conflatingly leader of the party as well, and then he wants to have the judge let them continue preparing for the election that is coming, and if the judge doesn't yield quickly enough, the judge will cause them harm and the party harm. That is not his responsibility to deal with the affairs of the party in that way anymore. He's not the leader of the party. Those are the prerogative and authority vested in the leader of the party. That position had been stripped from him by the highest authority constitutionally in the United Democratic Party. But the judge went ahead, I would say, ill-informed, little informed, I don't know. Judges are supposed to have a temperament where they rule on law. The judge was within his rights to decide that the full case would not be heard until after a case management sitting and other standard process procedures and protocols were visited on that situation. So that's the way it's supposed to work. But he was not within his rights to make the emergency ruling that he made in regards to conflating the two different positions. One being the leader of the party has the higher power than the person being the leader of the opposition in Congress or in the House of Representatives. Because the leader of the opposition in the House is only, the powers vested there are constitutional. And those are vested in terms of dealing with matters that relates to the House, the business of the House. So the judge cannot tell the leader of the party to cede or yield her authority and power, or to cease and desist from claiming her duly authorized powers vested in her as leader of the party, and allow this knucklehead wannabe to exercise those powers because he feel like. That's a travesty. That's why I said the judge erred, because these fools are now running around saying that the judge ruled in their favor, therefore he is the leader of the party, and nobody else should be claiming to be leader of the party. Initially, when the judge had ruled, he was saying nobody should be claiming to be the leader of the party till the matter gets taken care of. Then little by little, he and his lawyers came out saying that Ms. Panton should not be declaring herself or calling herself or making communication to the public in the name of the leadership of the party or the leader of the party, because she is not, according to them. But they have this knucklehead running around claiming that, oh, he's leader of the opposition. And being leader of the opposition means, in the minds of the ignoramus ones, them that really don't understand and don't want to know or could care less and just want to continue having a strife and mischief, in their mind, he is duly elected and is the leader of the opposition. I want them to stop conflating and stop lying, because the judge has not heard or ruled on the substantive matter of the case. His lawyer gonna get out here in public now, come from Jamaica to try to feel like he and come educate some Belizeans about the laws of Belize and the laws that he has been dealing with, being a high-class, eloquent, experienced, knowledgeable lawyer. To try and come out here and debase himself, to get the head hand back to in a platter by novice or neophytes like myself and others who know enough about what the hell he was trying to talk about, to point him in the right direction and to tell him that he's full of whatever is it that he was trying to spew out of his butt. The man fought so hard that thing come out, and then he never clean himself because he realized that thing come out because he fought so hard. The setting we not go so, and we don't know nothing about, unless he was ill-informed, uninformed, or misinformed by his client. And I don't think that the client should have done that to a liar. But I know we had in our country a prime minister who spit in at the face of Mr. Jerosovic because he never got the answer where he want. He said the man don't know the assignment. So that's not a surprise to most of us. For people who can't get their way, you know, he couldn't get away with the delegates, but you have to try and find one power play process where I could get away with the judge by lying to the judge. And because the judge don't know otherwise and supposed to be sending us that jail for contempt of court in the first place, now you're on the run around try to pretend like, well, the judge ruling in favor and the case is all over with. When the substantive case has not been heard. Are you back, Greg? A bunch of thugs. Go ahead, sir. All right, Greg? I think you might be off. I'll just go ahead and do a little extra reading, okay? Because I think Greg's mic is off.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Just a second, Greg, just a second. The judge erred in not recognizing that Shine and his lawyers lied, conflated, misrepresented facts, and were contemptuous to the court in their emergency pleadings. Shine Barrow position as leader of the opposition is not the same as Ms. Tracy Panton's position as leader of the United Democratic Party. That should be clear and clearly understood by even a first grader, I think. Not just a second grader or a sixth grader or, somebody at high school or somebody at college, or even, for that matter of fact, any lawyer. Not to say the least, such an outstanding lawyer as this gentleman, okay? For him not to have found out or try to figure out the truth before he go and open up his mouth and talk stuff that did not have any true merits to it, other than the fact that because he as a substantive professional lawyer is making that statement, therefore we Belizeans, we're not supposed to think otherwise or know otherwise and just take all the way he was pumping out and swallow it. No, man. We had a canal and we get rid of that canal long time ago. I hope somebody tell the man that or explain that to him. Shine Barrow's position as the leader of the opposition is not the same as Ms. Tracy Panton's position as leader of the United Democratic Party vested on her on the 20th of October 2024. The judge made a hasty, temporary ruling, of course. It was temporary. You see, we were in the other year already. And that temporary still exists because the case hasn't been heard. And an emergency temporary decision was made, apparently in ignorance of the facts, because the facts had not been established, the case had not been heard, and so the judge will make a ruling before he hear the case. Figure that out for me, or for yourself. The judge made a hasty, temporary ruling based on being incorrectly or ill-informed. Yes, Greg, you was about to say something else before I start this next thing, no? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. What I was about to say is I believe that based on what I have read from that ruling, the whole scenario is being taken out of context, where the ruling was solely based on possession of the building.
Exactly.
Because the judge had granted him back an order to retake possession of the building, they are classifying that as an overall rule to re-establish him as leader of the opposition, when it is not.
mischief
And
making.
even the learned gentleman from Jamaica should have known that. The laws in Jamaica is no different from the laws in Belize. They are both common law and they are both Commonwealth Caribbean law. So anyone who want to go back and look at the reading of the rule would find that what I am saying, you can see it. Furthermore, I would like to say this. A judge can only rule on law. No law was broken. When a judge make his or her ruling, it has to be constitutionally ruling. It has to base on the Constitution. If no law is broken, then the court cannot get involved. And I want to say this, people at home and abroad. If a law was broken, how come the DPP is not involved? Simple. Why is the DPP not involved if a law was broken? And even in the court's ruling as to grant Mr. Shine possession of the building is a wrong ruling. I will stipulate it again. Mr. Barrow does not and did not fall under the Landlord and Tenants Act. He was not renting that building. And in that case, the constitutional delegates of the United Democratic Party had the right to demote him and ask him to leave their building. And that is what took place, which is legal and legally binding per se their constitution. I go back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, sir. Um, I would like to read another one here. No, this one is going to be a bit lengthy, Greg. So if you want to interject at any point, just give me a heads up, okay? Just let me know that you're ready to chip in or something. Because this one is a
Go
bit
ahead,
long.
sir.
So I just want to let you know, don't wait until I'm finished because it might take the rest of the program. But I'm just kidding. Please interrupt me when you need to, though. Okay? Um, this is another essay that was written on November 16th, and it says the following. The following commentary was made by Leonard Brackett to Mr. Joaquin Magana Sr. in regards to Mr. Magana's Facebook post. Not, I got the wrong one. I don't want to do this one. I think I wanted to leave this one for last. So, Greg, do you have a quick comment to make? Just make a go to the make a find the other one.
Mr. Chairman
I
and
don't want to do this one right now. Go ahead, sir.
people at home and abroad, and Mr. Chairman, I believe that what is happening in Belize is the High Court will be setting some bad precedent in rulings that they are making. I find that people like Mr. Barrow and the Musas and the Ushers believe that they have privilege over our system in the way the court is run and the way the Constitution is being bastardized. I'm saying this because by our Constitution, Belize should run with separation of powers. And I have found that executive powers has taken control of our whole system, especially the judiciary. And I have seen it before where the present government has gone and fully take over State Bank from Mr. Feinstein, even though the court had came to a decision with them, they had violated that, fully taken it over, and then went back to the court to protect themselves and toss it out. But as not to hear it from me, because I've said I believe these people think they are privileged individual that can do anything that they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I want to play this tape so that you can hear it for yourself, and I want you to hear what Mr. Usher has to say.
Will automatically remain on the Cayo North list. Here's how he explained it in detail.
Well, this is not the first time that persons have been struck off of a list. We had successful challenges to voters on a number of occasions throughout the history of Belize. And really, this one has only gotten more media attention because of the public pronouncements and because of the accusations being levied. But I really believe that it is an exercise that's found in the legislation. You can challenge a person's residence, but really the Election and Boundaries Office is the one that goes out and does the determination as to a transfer or to the registration of a voter. And they carry out their duty very, very efficiently. And I think that what he was suggesting is something that the court listened to the evidence and made a pronouncement on. Those persons that were challenged, it wasn't all that were struck off, but those persons that were struck off, they are the ones that are actually appealing it to the High Court. While they appeal it, if the elections are called before the appeal is heard, they remain on that list.
On the old one?
No, on the new list where they were transferred to. So they remain on the Cayo North list until the appeal is heard. If there's an election, they would vote in Cayo North. Now the appeal then determines their eligibility to be transferred or for their voter roll to be transferred to Cayo North. Really, what you don't want to do is disenfranchise any voters. So you have to have some kind of stability and some kind of understanding as to how the court will decide.
People at home and abroad, I hope you heard what this gentleman said. They are appealing it. And if the appeal is not heard before the election, these people can vote. That is called privilege. They are stipulating as ministers what can be done and what cannot be done.
That is not what the Constitution
So
requires.
that is what I am speaking about. And when he goes to you can't enfranchise these people, what about the Belizean population with
As a
the
whole.
redistricting? What about the Belizean population with the redistricting? They are blocking that, disenfranchising the population. But here you go. A few people that are in their division, you heard what the gentleman said? They will vote, regardless if the appeal go through or not. That is when I say executive power is alive and living well. And I hope the people at home and abroad listen to this, because it will be more than this. It will happen. It will get so bad that you will not be able to seek judicial review under this present government. Meaning, we are going into authoritarian rule and we are going to be in a republic. I go back to you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. And everything you have said there is perfectly stated, 100% correct. And for those who think that we don't have a good enough track record, go back to the last 240 odd shows, validate for yourself whether or not, as of today's date, from since then till now, we have a good enough track record. Because you'll find out that 98% of what we have advocated and dealt with turned out to be exactly the way we said it was and would be. But on that same point, going back to the delegates that they were talking about, the voters. When that minister was talking about not disenfranchising the voters then and allowing them to vote, They are the ones that are trying to disenfranchise people from voting. They don't have to call the election in a rush right now. They have until November. But they're hell bent in wanting to call an election as quick as possible. So they go and transfer from divisions where they have a lot of people, more than where the opposition could muster up. They go and transfer some of their people out of those divisions because they consider those to be safe divisions, and they go and re-register them in a division where they are weak to try and make up numbers. And they always do that at the last minute. So now he wants to say because they did that at the last minute and the people in the name dip on the thing, even though it's on there inappropriately because the names are being challenged, the people that went and they registered, incorrectly. And as a matter of fact, someone stay on the new one where they register, and they still go voting on the old one where they register because the people where they register originally with, they know them in that era that they are voters from that era. So they go and vote there, and then they go voting at the new register. All kind of hanky-panky is going on. But they feel like nobody knows what's going on, and that they give people news when they tell us, then kind of shenanigans when they tell us. They're bastardizing our constitution. They're doing all manner of evil against us, and they're turning around to try and gain the powers again to continue doing the same. I yield back, sir.
Thank you, sir. It's happening even in his division of Fort George. The last time I believe I checked, there are like 300 voters there. Now there's a new figure, I believe 600. But you haven't seen no new houses built in that division. You haven't seen nothing new where another 300 voters would be. So it's happening all over. And they know this. And I say it
On the
again
Fort
tonight.
George, Greg.
It's called gerrymandering.
Yeah, but on the Fort George one, let me tell you exactly what's happening there, okay? There are some houses that you call safe houses. I know quite a few of them, okay? And they have multiple amount of people in those places, far more than what the houses can accommodate, being registered there. The people, some of them are from Hattieville, some of them are from Ladyville, some of them are from other parts of the country. Then register them there, and when election day, they make them all around the building, and then they go and vote. After they finish vote the following day or two, they're going back to their districts or to their places of origin. So this thing, when they talk about people register and you got to let the people in, it's a part of it. Then scam when they run. Then register people for make up numbers.
But sir, outside of the registration, these people are privileged. He has more power than the court. So section 69(9) that should be null and void is alive and working because you heard him. Even though there's an appeal, if that appeal does not go through, these people will still be entitled to vote.
That is
No,
a lie.
imagine that.
Yeah, but that is a lie.
Imagine that.
That is unconstitutional. And that is a
It
lie.
is unconstitutional. That is stating, as I was saying,
To
that
hell with
the
the Constitution
present
as far as they're
government,
concerned.
that is simply stating the present government has more power than our judiciary. That means the Constitution means nothing to the government. And we have seen it in the SOEs, where they stipulated that no court can give these young men no bail or anything.
And
And
that's
you
contrary
heard
to
the commissioner said if they grant them bail, he will go and lock them up right away. And he
he
did
should have
it.
been locked up. He should have
He
been locked
did
up.
it. So,
No, he couldn't try to
as I'm
apologize.
saying, it's starting to show the real faces of what is happening in the country
Belizeans,
by these privileged people. They are stipulating that they have more power than the court, that if the appeal does not go through, they can vote anyway. These people are higher than the court.
And that is not the way it's supposed to be, Greg. If the appeal doesn't go
But
through
we
or
know
doesn't go,
that.
if the
We
appeal,
know that.
Greg, until the appeal goes through, they can only go and vote in their original registration. They cannot vote in the new registration. That's the law. Because the transfer has not been completed. So you only could exercise your franchise in the previous location because you're still registered to vote there. And until you get a proper transfer,
Let's,
you're not
Mr.
entitled to vote
Chairman,
in the
now
new
we're
place.
speaking, right? Let's look at the UDP scenario. Since an appeal is pending until the 25th of this month, then likewise, shouldn't it be that Mr. Barrow is not the leader per the UDP constitution until the appeal can go through?
That's the point.
If that was the case,
But that is the point.
that in both cases, it should be the point. So you see what I'm speaking about? Some people are privileged.
They violate the Constitution and violate other people's rights and how and pull the system and do what they want with it and to hell with the Constitution. And you don't consider to be rogue or thuggish. I want somebody to educate me otherwise because I'm too dumb or stupid maybe. I yield back, Mr. Brackett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And these are some of the things that we're dealing with. And that is why I believe that if I'm any voter out there, I will say to you, none of the above. Voting any other color not to have one government or one party government in power. Make it where you have red, you have blue, you
And
have
any other
yellow,
color
or
in
any
both, a
other
lot of
color.
them.
So they all depend on each other to pass bills in the house. Because if
Greg?
you
Oh,
go
sorry.
back down that road, if you go back down that road, you will not like the outcome because you are beginning to see it. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, sir. I finally found the other article that I wanted to read. Of course, I won't be able to read the ones that I started just now because um, I needed to read this one. And this one was dated, what is this? January 9th of 2025. The following commentary and citations were made by Leonard Brackett regarding the Belize Constitution. And I titled this one, Belize Constitution, A Teachable Moment, Part 20A. I went on to say, Constitution of Belize is supreme law. And you find it under Part 1, Section 2, Subsection 1 of the Constitution of Belize. And it reads as follows. This Constitution is the supreme law of Belize. And if any other law, that is to say laws that are made by the House of Representatives, which are actually classified as substantive law, okay? And these substantive law, sometimes you can use them to modify different parts of the Constitution if you have the necessary numbers as required by the Constitution under Section 69. But under 69, you cannot do modification to just about any and every little part of the Constitution. There are some parts that are out of the reach that you can't write out of existence, so you can't change them to the point of making them ineffective or null. So it says the supreme, this Constitution is the supreme law of Belize, and if any other law is inconsistent with this Constitution, that other law made by Congress or whoever shall be, to the extent of the inconsistencies, be void. So even if 100% of our legislators get together and make one bastardized law or an unconstitutional law, it doesn't make it constitutional because all of them got together and decided to conspire to make it. It is still unconstitutional. It is still outside the bounds of the Constitution. Unless they overthrow the Constitution, those particular laws that are anti-constitutional, anti-Belize or anti-Belizeans have no effect of law or power of law. Protection of freedom of assembly and association. Part 2, Section 13, Subsection 1. Except with his own consent, a person shall not be hindered in the enjoyment of his freedom of assembly and association. That is to say, his rights to associate freely and assemble with others or with other persons and in particular to form or belong to a trade union or other associations for the protection of his interests, or to form or belong to political parties or other political association. This, as by constitutional, thus, 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 comma, as by constitutional prescripts, is forbidden or impermissible or a bar for any officer in the three branches of government, that is to say, the executive or the legislative or the judiciary. It is impermissible. This is a bar. It is forbidden for any officer to violate or infringe on constitutionally enshrined and protected fundamental rights. Therefore, no judge should overreach by dictating leadership choices in a political party's biannual conference of delegates. In other words, any judge that tries to supersede or override or make any ruling contrary to what the biannual delegates have decided is abridging their rights, is breaking the Constitution, is not holding fidelity to the Constitution, and is bastardizing the Constitution, and is not ruling according to law, which we just read from Section 13, which says that no government authority, neither the Prime Minister or any other minions below him, neither the Supreme Court judge or any other judge below him or her, neither the legislative body have any rights or authority to contravene constitutionally enshrined inalienable rights. So for all intents and purposes, that judge that made that temporary, as they call it, ruling, emergency ruling. It was a temporary emergency ruling that was incorrect on the face of it. Not only that, they went ahead and made a temporary ruling without understanding and knowing the context of all the facts, while stipulating that the ruling would only be temporary until they get around to listening to all both sides and get the hearing completed. As a matter of convenience, that judge was willing to violate our Constitution and to give credibility and authority and power to someone who did not have that power inside of that organization. And to tell the organization, you have to stomach this man until I decide when. That's bullcrap. That judge should have been taken out to Central Park, tied up and flogged until he figured out how to learn his lesson. Because he didn't act like if he really knew his lesson. Basic legal training when you go to law school is that they teach you to deal with the basics first. You learn the evidence and the substantive matters before you weigh in. Probably he didn't go to he didn't go to classes when those basics were being taught. So he probably left law school, came out without it, and now that he faced a situation where he needs to use it, he doesn't know how to use it and use it appropriately. Because had he decided and said he does not have any jurisdiction on that matter, being a political matter at that, and that would that if he was to make any ruling, which he actually did end up making, he would have been contravening the Constitution because he doesn't know enough yet. He hasn't heard the case. So he could have said he cannot grant that. Everything has to stay the way it is right there and then. The delegates have spoken until he can find out whether or not those delegates were the legitimate delegates or whether they were imposters who were not the original or legitimate, validly certified delegates, which are the only basis on which he would have a reason to say, well, what those delegates decided should not stand. Not to say the least, he's still getting into private matters. The Constitution forbids them to do any such thing. But anyhow, let me finish with the thing because I already run out of time. I'm not going to be too long. I'm almost finished. Therefore, no judge should overreach by dictating leadership choices to a political party's biannual conference of delegates, which is the highest authority and power constitutional authority of the party, and to which all committees or officers in those committees are subordinate and accountable entities. So Mr. Perefit and his merry band, they're all subordinate to the biennial conference. They can't tell the biennial conference can't have a meeting to discuss getting rid of them, but just because they don't want to be getting rid of. For them to stand in the way of the biennial conference having its meeting is to break their own, is to abrogate or to break their own responsibilities. And for that reason alone, they could have and should have been fired. But they insist in not wanting to have this delegation meet because they knew they didn't have the number of votes to prevail. And after the delegation meet, and the delegation decide what they wanted to have decided, which they have the maximum power in the party, they're going to run out to a judge outside of that party, a constitutional judge that rules on constitutional matters relating to the Constitution of Belize, which says that the judge or no other government entity has any right to tamper in at them people in business. He gonna run to them and tell them, oh, then take away the party headquarters from me, and they never take it away the correct way. So I want you to give me an emergency order, which the judge went ahead and did. Gave him an emergency order to say that, well, they have to get back the party headquarters, when he had no rights and authority to it. But I yield. I want to read the rest of this because I think we're out of time, Greg, and yeah, we're just about there. And I need to yield you some time for your commentary, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
It's a whole scenario of things that is happening in our country, and we are running into this general election point blank. All this talk about Belize plan and Plan Belize and the failing of government to carry through with it, that they are now stipulating how the Prime Minister was speaking about it's a long-term plan. They haven't come up with enough ideas as to how to have put it all together for the 5 years they're in.
It was never legitimate. It was never legitimate. It was always a sham that they were pulling on the people. And now
everything is a sham. Everything is a sham, and there's proof to that. Even from the political financing, in a way, when I said they have found a new way to buy votes, taking away stamp duties. People below 30,000 will not pay no tax. All those things is a lie and a gimmick, because when you believe you're not paying taxes, that is not true, because you will put more into other things that will go back to the government. With your permission, I will play this tape.
Go right ahead, sir.
In here.
Go
To
right
an
ahead.
era that is characterized by lower and lower taxes.
By lowering everyone's tax rates all the way up the income scale, each of us will have a greater incentive to climb higher, to excel, to help America grow.
Taxes have never been popular, but this was a time when taxes really started to hit a new low. So after years of being illegal, the lottery is back, and it is back with a vengeance. Soon you have these multi-state national lotteries, and the government starts to make millions and then billions of dollars of tax revenue that they weren't getting from just boring old taxes. Okay, so the lottery is just another tax, but who ends up paying these fun voluntary taxes? The people who pay them are the ones who don't really have the means to. Poorer and less educated people are the ones who play the lottery most.
The lottery is mostly a tax on people who don't know math.
The lottery ends up as a tax on those who can least afford it.
It's a tax on the poor, but most of that money is spent by low-income consumers.
In South Carolina, one report found that people who make less than $35,000 a year spent more than double on lottery tickets than people who make over $100,000 a year. Let that sink in for a second. Double. They also found that people of color are more likely to buy lottery tickets than white players. One study found that in almost every state, whether it's by design or not, neighborhoods that have lottery retailers have a higher poverty rate than neighborhoods that don't have lottery retailers. Remember, this is the free market. These retailers are following the demand. So yeah, you start to see a picture of the government using the desperation of those who are less educated to generate revenue that they don't get from boring old regular taxes. And then I think the moment that actually gets me here is that money, that revenue, goes to fund things that isn't often beneficial to the poorer communities that bought the tickets and paid the taxes. So yeah, that is the lottery. The question is, why do we keep doing this? And again, it goes back to that very shrewd economic argument. Humans love gambling. They're gonna do it anyway. Why not just regulate it and make some extra revenue out of it? But as always, there's some private interests here too, keeping this all alive. Who prints all of these, right? Who makes the latex that goes on the little scratch off? Those are companies that make a lot of money off the lottery. And they actually have lobbyists keeping the lottery alive. So yeah, the lottery exists and will probably always exist. I mean, humans love gambling, and taxes exist and are necessary. We need to fund our government. But do we need to run a gambling scheme to raise those taxes? The specific way that the government runs the lottery today is a regressive tax on the poor. It raises money and it sends that money to places that doesn't benefit the people who are funding that tax. And so when we see that gambling funds education or goes to good causes, to me that just feels misleading. We just need to call it what it is. The lottery is a tax on the poor.
Scam. It's a scam.
There you go, people at home and abroad.
That's it.
Couldn't have said it better.
Could you close it out for us?
Thank you.
With your last commentary? You have a last
Again,
comment
as
or
I
advice to the
said,
public or something?
Again, as I said, people at home and abroad, we need to have a coalition government. Kindly put your votes to the different third parties so that we don't have a one-party government. I am appealing to you to do that. We cannot have democracy in a country where there is a one-party government. And I'm specifying this because even though we can hold a government accountable by our constitution, we see what the government is trying to do to the constitution. Take it apart and restructure it and come with a new one that will give them the power. So please take a look at what is happening. With that said, I would like to say good night to the people
Nice.
at home and abroad. Thank you for
Nice,
tuning in
nice presentation, Greg. Thank you very much.
to this, our 244th episode of Belizean Affairs. Good night to one and all.